Now let's get into it on the other side.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Other Side, Leadership After Transition. If you don't know, I'm that guy, Jeffrey Lodick. It's good to see you. I appreciate y'all stopping in. If it's the first time you're here, hey, listen, hit like, hit share, do whatever it is that you do. You know, you always watch these videos and you hear people say like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Hey, just like it, share it, make a comment, so I know you're here. I'd like to address you as you come in. Hey, got to tell you, if you've never been here before, this is a transition conversation. I have them all the time. I don't tell anybody how to transition. I might give some advice based on some of the things that I'm asked, but I never tell someone what they have to do because it's not a one size fits all thing. So I bring you stories, real experiences from real people who have done it before you to give you some help or guidance. And more importantly, let you see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and there's going to be a positive outcome. Because that's what I am. I'm a positive guy. Unless you know me, then you'd say I'm probably not so much a positive guy. I'm just teasing you. Hey, today is going to be a great conversation. As always, I have Command Sergeant Major retired Timothy Sloan, who will be here in a minute. But I wanted to talk to you real quick before we started, just about some things that exist in the veteran space that may help you in your transition journey. I've been podcasting now for 5 years. It's been 5 years. That's kind of crazy to me when I say it out loud. And in that time, I've got to meet some great podcasters. And through that time, new podcasts have popped up out of nowhere. And I love it. In the veteran space, I don't even know the number because it's so many. But we had some conversations last week with Mark in regards to some of the podcasts that they've been doing. I wanted to throw out some other ones that you can listen to. So 4 Block has a podcast. I love it. Mike Abrams, the founder of 4 Block, who at some point in time here in the very near future will be on this show with us. The 4 Block podcast is awesome. The experiences shared is great, or are great, excuse me. You have the Military Dads podcast with Ben Killoy, Veterans in Business with James Van Pruyen. And you just have a bunch of other podcasts. So listen, if you're interested in starting a podcast, if you have a show and you're listening right now and I didn't mention it, believe me, I wasn't trying to slight you. Put it in the comments. I'd love to look it up if I don't know about it. If I do know about it, I'd like to promote it because listen, I love what all you are doing to help our community as we move forward in life. With all that being said, hey, tonight is not about me. It's about y'all. And I'm going to bring on our guest, and I'm really excited to have him. So without further ado, let me bring to the stage with applause. I got to see if I hit the right button. I did laughing last time. Yeah, you can applause. Look at that. Here he is. Man, I got all these buttons, man.
That's what I'm talking about, man. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Stand up, standing ovation.
It is. It's always a standing ovation for Mr. Timothy Sloan.
Yeah, man, and just Sloan. I've always been Sloan, so let's just stick with Sloan. It's easier that way, man.
I love it. Hey, so real quick, I'm in Tampa, Florida. Where are you coming from today?
I am actually in Columbia, South Carolina right now. Home of the Gamecocks.
Is it warm? Gamecocks, get them. What's the temperature? Did you get snow? I saw like people were shutting down cities up in DC. I know it's a little further south, or that's a little further north.
Hey, so dude, we're just like Texas, man. If you don't like the weather in South Carolina, wait 10 minutes because it's going to change. So we went from having 80-degree days down to having 28-degree days, and I think today was a little warmer, a little fun, a little bit more fun. I was out on the golf course hitting the golf ball a little bit today. So yeah, man, it's pretty nice.
I got up yesterday morning to go into the office and it was 48 on my phone. I checked the temperature because the night before it was dropping. You could feel the winds picking up and it was getting cool. So I looked at my phone and I promised everything on God that I almost called in sick. Listen, when it gets below 60, I'm from Buffalo, man, and I hate the cold. So 48 degrees was excessive. So when you're sitting there at the 28-degree mark, yeah, I'm moving, man. At that point in time, I'm packing up and I'm going. If I'm by myself, so be it. Let's go.
Hey, you know we're a couple old guys, and we start off talking about weather. The next thing we're going to talk about is all our illnesses and the pills that we take.
Yeah, look, we could probably have a whole show for that. I could lay them out and each one, tell you how many times a day I'm supposed to take them and what they're exactly for. I think the more interesting part would be the side effects. But anyhow, outstanding. So listen, Sloan, I'll tell you what, man, I'm really appreciative that you're here today. Can't wait to talk about what you're doing, what you did, but more importantly, the transition into the the civilian world and what you're doing now. But let's kind of give a little bit of a backstory about
Yeah,
who
yeah.
you are, so the listeners can kind of get an understanding of why they should listen, and who you are specifically, so they can kind of relate, and then kind of understand what your choices were as you made that transition to be where you're at now. So give us a little background. What made you join the military, and then we'll talk a little bit about your progression through your career, and then we'll go to the transition part.
Well, back in 1922, right before the Great Depression, you know what I'm saying? Um, you know, I guess it starts in high school, right? So if it wasn't for me being at the bottom of the class, there would have been nobody at the top of the class, right? So I was at the bottom holding everybody up. I wasn't a great student. It wasn't from a lack of intelligence. It was a lack of ambition and guidance and focus and everything else in between. So I kind of floundered around for a little bit before I went to the Army. As a matter of fact, what brought me to the Army is an interesting story. And I never told this story while I was on active duty because one, it's really embarrassing, and two, I'm not sure I want CID coming after me. But um, I was 22 years old, and I was in and out of college, and decided I was going to go it alone. And anybody that's young and trying to go it alone and trying to manage your finances at first, you realize that, man, you're burning the candle at both ends, and oftentimes it's just not enough to go around. And I was selling weed on the side to make freaking do.
Mhm.
I was, man. I was selling weed on the side to make do. And I was over at a gym playing basketball, and a couple guys wanted to rob me, and they were hanging out by my car, and they beat me within an inch of my life. I spent a few weeks in the hospital. When I got out the hospital, I went looking for him. I mean, bottom line, I went looking for him, and I found a dude, and I put a gun to his head, and I pulled the trigger, and the pistol did not fire. The very next day, I went to the Army recruiter's office, and I said, "You got to get me out of here. You got to get me away from myself. You got to save me from myself." And he did. He got me in the Army and had me going to Germany, and that's kind of where it all started. And oh, by the way, 1 week after I arrived at my very first duty station, I arrived on a Monday. I was in jail on Friday night. So it was an auspicious beginning, to believe to start off with, man. But that actually, God has a purpose for us, right? And even though we don't fully understand what's happening and why it's happening, there's a reason for it happening. And for me, I honestly, I was not guilty of anything other than being with the wrong person, because I was brand new to the unit. But for the next 45 days, I was confined to the barracks while they figured out what was happening. And during that period of time in Germany, you're going from Grafenbeer to Hohensfeld, and then another 45 days in the barracks. It's like the first 6 months I was in the Army, uh, no civilian clothes, had to be marched to and from the dining facility, to and from the motor pool, to and from the gym. I mean, I was under lock and key by my squad leader, and that was the absolute best thing that ever happened to me.
That's
Best
awesome.
thing.
We're not so far off in our past, right? But I would tell you what's really interesting is that we all have stories about ourselves, right? And I think that was one of my favorite things about the military, especially the young people. I mean, when I was a drill sergeant, it was awesome. When I was a squad leader, it was awesome. When I was a platoon sergeant, first sergeant, all just listening and getting there and to understand the people that are serving in our military, right? And it's funny because some people look at it negatively, and that's why I can always tell you that the military is a great place, because where you were at 22 years old and where you are today, you're a much different person. Development, the squad leader, the people that molded, shaped, taught you what right looks like and how to execute in the right way. It's to me, I think that we tend to not think about how good the service at any branch, right? But the service from our experience with the Army can really be for someone who is misguided or with no guidance, little guidance, and then to be able to see just how good you can become. Because me, on the other hand, I was the guy that did stuff because someone told me I couldn't. Like, I was the guy that wanted to prove people that said you'll never do or you can't be or all that stuff. And that's why I was good in the Army early, until I realized I was kind of good at what I was doing, and I didn't need to do it because or in spite of somebody. I could do it because I liked what I did and I was really enjoying it. It just took a little bit of a mindset change, and that mindset change didn't come because I was brilliant. It became because I had a squad leader, a platoon sergeant that actually saw something in me that I couldn't even see. And I think that you get that across across the board within the military and some of these
Yeah,
young men
and
and
you know
women.
what's really scary, Jeff, and I think you can probably attest to this, is that today's Army is one of zero tolerance and zero mistake. And I became who I was not in spite of my mistakes, but because of those mistakes. And because somebody made life tough on me when I made a mistake. However, they didn't bury me. They allowed me to learn and grow from those mistakes. And I hope that as a leader, and I hope that if anybody's talking about Command Sergeant Major Sloan right now, and when they were with him, that they say that, you know, he was real and he gave people a second chance and he fought for the underdog and he didn't bury people when they were less than, you know, what they could be. I hope that's the case.
Well, I think that's an amazing outlook. I mean, I think that's the way it should be. I mean, obviously the 4856 for non-Army folks, the counseling form, but it's a tool, right? And I think that it's really interesting. UCMJ, it's all a tool, and the tool can be used to rehabilitate, to improve, to expound upon your deficiencies and make it better, or it could be to crush you. It just depends on who you were, right? And I agree with you wholeheartedly as far as it's almost like you're walking on eggshells, and I don't think we can grow in that manner. I think we have to slip and fall and bump our head and then get up and do it again, right? Whatever the case may be, and just learn from it. But that's awesome. So tell me, so you went into, what was your MOS in the Army?
I was a medic. I was a combat medic, 68 whiskey. It was an Alpha, then Bravo, and then by the time I retired, it was Zulu. But yeah, we went through the alphabet soup.
Yeah, no
I
doubt.
was a medic. Bottom line, I was a medic.
Man, look, I used to envy you guys all the time. I mean, not for everything. Oh, believe me when I say this, I envied you for duty assignments. I envied you for kind of like your schedule on occasion when I'd see you. If some of you all were in the hospital, if you were in a regular unit, I didn't envy you because of the amount of work you had to do when you're in the field or in combat situations.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't want anything to do with that stuff. You guys were kind of amazing, almost like, I mean, heroic, all of you. But I used to, I used to make fun of y'all because I get frustrated because y'all would be in your own little space while we're out there doing stuff. I'm a commo guy, right? So I'm running wires, I'm doing this stuff, and you guys set up your little what y'all, I can't remember what the tent was, but you get your little space. And that was, you just waited for people to come and check you out. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, because I picked a great job, I'm running Cat 5 cable and all this other stuff miles down the road. I used to be so mad. I'm like, man, I should have been a medic, but no, that's awesome. So give me a little background about your career. So as you come in as a medic, give me
So
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You get the point.
Okay. Well, as a 68 series CMF, so there's 19 MOSs within the 16, not to get too technical on people. So from lab techs to freaking x-ray techs to OR techs to medics, there's 19 different MOSs that fall under the 68 series CMF. I happen to be a medic, and medics are managed a little bit different from all the other ones. You know, a lot of times medics are in infantry units. And for me, of the 30 years that I spent in the military, a little over half of those were in infantry units. I didn't start getting managed in medical units until like I became a sergeant major. That's when I really started spending a lot of time in medical units. As a matter of fact, the last 10 years, you know, I'm a CSM in a medical unit, and that's just the way they manage you when you pinnacle out. But moving up, you know, I'm 3rd Infantry Division, 1st Infantry Division, doing a lot of those things with those guys. Too many deployments to count. You know, too many times away from home to count. Lack of stability. I think I moved 18 times in 30 years. So lots of movement, you know, and I think that that's a story that a lot of people can tell. What's interesting, Jeff, is last night I was talking to a young staff sergeant that works with us on our servant leader deal, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And he's a recruiter right now, and he's a staff sergeant. He's got 10 years in the Army. And man, what an all-star. Just talking to him, I'm like, there's no way I was as smart as that guy when I was his age. You know, he's 27 years old, just incredibly smart, very articulate, very just has a vision and everything else in between. And he was asking me kind of questions like you're asking me. Well, what was your career like? When did you make Sergeant First Class? And I said, well, I was promoted to Sergeant First Class with 7 years in the Army, and promoted to Master Sergeant with just under 12 years in the Army, and Sergeant Major at 17. And he was like, Jesus, man, how'd you get promoted so fast? And I said, dude, don't look at me like that, because I'm not that guy. You know, the reality is, you know, you've got to be ready to jump when they call your name and they move you to the freaking the door of the airplane. However, timing has a lot to do with it. And I came into Army in 1989, and we had 550,000 soldiers in the Army. And right after Desert Storm, Congress said, we got to cut this stuff in half. And they started sending people home with bonuses and everything else in between, early retirement. Here's this young sergeant left in the swimming pool to swim all by himself. So I started getting promoted really fast. So I'm not going to say I didn't do some things right, but I got to tell you, man, timing has a lot to do with it, and had a lot to do with my career. I'll be honest with you. And if I go through it, I can give you so many incidents. So even making Master Sergeant early, which means I was eligible for Sergeant Major when I had 14 years in the Army. And the first year they promoted absolutely nobody. The second year they promoted 4. The third year they promoted 8, and the fourth year they promoted 40. And that's the year that I got selected. And I was number 26 on the list. They promoted up to number 26. So I got promoted within the first 3 months, and then 2 years passed before they promoted another sucker. So again, timing, right? I mean, that had nothing to do with excellence. That was just straight up time.
I think it's really interesting you bring up that word. And I think timing is something that goes unnoticed, unspoken, or just totally ignored in a lot of things that we discuss, whether it be while you're serving or while you're transitioning. When it comes to jobs, I was talking to Mark last week, and I find that to be one of the more frustrating things that I have to deal with when I have these conversations with people.
Yeah.
When one guy is, again, same credentials, same ranks, and all that good stuff. I mean, a lot of times I'm talking to 05s, 06s, E8s, E9s, and as they're looking for jobs, and they'll talk about their partner who had got a job at X company for X dollars, and they want to get a job at X company for X dollars, but the problem is that job's already been filled. Not to say that your value doesn't work to that same thing. Your value's there, but that job specifically that paid that specific dollar is gone. And
Yeah.
does that exist somewhere else? Maybe, maybe not. And it's timing. It's not your worth. It's not you specifically. It has nothing to do. You shouldn't hang your head in shame because you're not good. It just happens to be something that which you cannot control, and that's timing. And we don't insert that into a conversation often enough, in my opinion, right? So that's just really interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, that's because most people are wrapped around their ego, and they don't want to admit that they weren't in complete control of what happened. And the reality is, oftentimes we are not, and especially in the Army. I can go back to the point where I got promoted to young sergeant, and the promotions cutoff score was 747, and I had 748 points. So I got promoted. It went up to 798 the very next month and stayed there for 2 solid years. So if I had done one less push-up, I'd have stayed a specialist for another 2 years. Timing, absolute timing, right?
Unreal. I mean, so I want to show you something. I'm going to put this in the forefront only because this is a time I don't give this guy enough props, but I'm going to. I'm going to throw this up. It's in the background, but I'm going to throw it on the top. So this design right here, we had a graphics guy in our organization. He was a specialist, and his name is Sven, Drew Sven. Awesome kid, right? Want to get out, maybe want to stay, do all this good stuff, but he worked. He busted his tail. 798. That was his cutoff score. And he got 798. That he was the one person that got promoted. The cutoff score since that time, by the way, I think it's only dropped twice, and it had been 798 for over 2 years solid. He worked his butt off to get to it, got promoted at 798, and rest is history. I think he's a sergeant first or staff sergeant promotable now. He's just making waves. But I look at some things, and again, you can wait for it to drop, right? Just like anything, you can wait for it, and maybe one day it's going to. Yeah. Or you can bust your tail, because I'll tell you, one less push-up, but you had 750 points. That space.
Yeah.
You didn't have 650. You didn't have 325. You did work to get at least close, and they brought it down. You got picked up, and other people were sitting there saying, "Well, I'm not going to try because the cutoff score is too high." Anyway,
that's a good point. I mean, there was some work that went into it, but the reality is, when it comes down to it, there's a lot of timing involved, man.
Oh, yeah.
And within the military, once you start, so it's officers are a little different, but they're the same. They're considered year groups.
Yep.
And you are sort of kinda. So when you get promoted, you're in that year group with those other sergeants, as a young sergeant E5 in the Army.
Mm.
But just getting into that year group, it kept me from having to wait 2 more years,
Sure.
which means 2 more years, maybe, or maybe I don't even make sergeant first class because now that I'm eligible, they're not promoting anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you also think to yourself, and because these experiences exist across the board. If you had to wait 2 more years, do you reenlist? I mean, because being honest,
Yeah,
right? In the
yeah,
military, it's probably one of the most competitive spaces ever, right? Because the bottom
yeah,
line is, you could want to be a technician all you want, but you're going to get promoted because that's the culture that's created. So it's a competitive culture. So if in 2 years I'm still waiting for the cutoff score and I'm still an E4, I'm probably not, because everybody else is moving around me or whatever the case may be. And the expectation is that I get promoted or whatever the case may be. It kind of
yeah,
it makes you have some type of ideology that I'm not good enough or forget about it. It's not worth my time. I can go make the dollar I'm making at wherever, whatever the case may be. So it's just interesting. There's effort that got to be put into the things, but timing does play a role. I think timing plays a huge role. So let me ask you this. So you give me just the assignment locations throughout your time, and 18 times moving is significant. What are some of
yeah.
the
So
locations?
I'll start off. How about if I just do as a sergeant major?
Okay.
So Fort Stewart, uh, El Paso, Hawaii, Fort Gordon, Fort Jackson, Hawaii, retirement.
Wow. That's just the latter part of your career. That's the last, what, 10 years? I mean,
Yeah,
13 years of your career,
yeah,
right? That's nuts. So it's why I brought that up is it's just interesting because we'll start to talk transition a little bit, and it's funny because we constantly talk. The word on the street is that transition is a struggle, right? The transition is so tough. The transition is a whole new life, which it's
yeah,
all factual. I mean, but and that brings in some fears, right? A lot of people have some anxiety about the transition, about making the decision to transition. Number one, and then once they do make that decision, it's like, what am I going to do? But I try to tell people often that throughout your military career, whether it be 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years, you've transitioned a bunch of times because
yeah,
whether you were a command sergeant major at brigade, a command sergeant major battalion, different. I mean, same overall like mindset, but strategically it's different.
yeah, yeah,
Operationally, it's different. And then if you're an operations sergeant major or whatever the case may be, there's different roles. Title might be similar, but we do things differently and the expectations are different. You being who you are is important, but still there's a transition. There's new leadership, there's new ideology, there's new goals and all those things that those units have. So the transition itself is not, it's not brand new,
yeah,
although it's a new industry or whatever the case may be. We've gone through it, and I know we know that you can understand the feeling because, well, unless you're not like me, when every time I got to a new unit, though I was really refreshed to get a new start, I could be the guy I want to be. I could come in there hard charging and do that great stuff, but still, I'm really nervous about the people I'm about to meet and the people I'm going to lead and the people I'm
yeah.
responsible for. And I'm nervous getting into that world. And I think that's the same feeling that people getting out the military. So they've felt it before, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Hey, so man, I got a million thoughts on that. So, first of all, the military takes care of us almost too much. And it's almost like we forget how to take care of ourselves because the military does such a wonderful job. If you've got good solid leadership, it doesn't matter whether you're in the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, it doesn't matter. If you've got good leadership, things are going to be taken care of that you don't have to worry about anymore. So once you have to start taking care of yourself, it gets a little scary, and that happens really fast. And people don't understand that the person that can take the best care of you is you. Absolutely, is going to be you. I usually advise people this way, man. I always say, perform like you're going to be in the military for your entire life. Prepare as if today is the last day. You know what I mean? So
That's
you
great.
should always be preparing for transition. Always be preparing financially and mentally and from a resiliency standpoint for things to change. But perform like this is what you're going to do your entire life. That's why that for me that means that when an opportunity presents itself, if I choose to stay in the military, that's my choice. If I choose to leave the military, that's my choice because I've performed and prepared. Now, in regards to getting to what the Air Force and the Navy, they call it the what's it called? Not terminal assignment, they call it something. I don't know if you've heard the term.
I'm trying to. I
But
am
they
trying to think.
actually, because somebody told me in the Navy that they have, if you're within a year from retirement, they will move you to where you want to be so that you can transition successfully to the location, or at least relatively close to the location you want to be, opposed to me being in Hawaii and trying to figure out how do I pay for plane tickets to go to and from South Carolina to buy houses and prepare for housing and everything else in between, move cars. I mean, it can get incredibly expensive. So, it's difficult to transition from overseas to assignment. God, Twilight Tour.
There it is.
That's what they
I was,
call
I
it.
was about to ask. I was about to phone a friend. I was going to say, hey, out there, someone's watching. Help us out.
And we just can't do that as an Army. And then once you're a senior person, and I imagine junior people the same way, man, but I wasn't ever preparing to get out as a junior. And that is, you've got this push and pull, or this tug from what you feel is your responsibility to the organization, opposed to your responsibility to yourself and your family. And it's not anybody pulling on you. It's not an individual or organization pulling on you. It's your own commitment to both of them pulling on you. And, for me, it was tough because I was in a command sergeant major position, and I'm overseas, and I didn't do anything specific to prepare for transition. And I had financially, I was golden because I took care of that. And I didn't plan on working if I didn't have to work. My whole goal was to spend the first couple of years actually retired, and not have to go in and do something that I didn't want to do just to make ends meet. So I made sure that my finances were straight. But as far as emotionally, I wasn't, sooner or later, at the point in time that I threw my boots over the power line, that was it, man. It was throw them over the power line, get on an airplane. So it happened really, really, really fast. And that can be difficult because you do need to downshift, You don't pull up to the stoplight and slam on the brakes. You freaking downshift to third and the second and first gear and ride that clutch to the freaking stop sign.
Yeah. No doubt. And that's a great analogy. That really is, because I think that it's interesting. Just I retired out of MacDill Air Force Base down in Tampa, Florida, and there's some people I've seen it here, and I've talked to people throughout the past 7 years now, because I've been talking transition for a long time. While I was getting prepared to do it, if I was going to do it. And by the way, you said you were never prepared to get out of the military when you were young. Me neither. As a matter of fact, that's why I reenlisted. At the time, at the young times, I didn't reenlist because I was passionate about what I was doing when I was young. I reenlisted because I didn't want to go to what I was doing, because I knew that's where I'd be at, is doing the same thing I was doing prior to coming in, which would have made me taking no steps forward. I'd have been going backwards. So, but as I learned and got better around better people and leaders, and then I had a passion for what I was doing and loved every moment of the Army. But I say all that to say, we don't take a look at things, or we get to see people that get to kind of slide out, meaning that they get the time, they take on their own for 2 years. They're looking at these timelines. They're doing the proper things to plan financially, opportunity wise, from jobs, looking at job boards, talking and creating networks, and doing that stuff at the 24-month period. And that's a positive thing. On the flip of that, you have guys and gals that are, last day, they're getting ready to get their DD 214, and they're talking to their whomever, whatever that, if that's the brigade command or whatever, they're talking to their people that they're changing over with to try to make sure that they're all good. And it's not that they don't want to let go. It's that they either were expected, or they thought they were expected to be there to the last minute, or because of their loyalty and their commitment to what they were doing, they wanted to be there to the last minute, thus, making their separation a really rough time. And I know plenty of people on both sides of that, on sides of that board, right? I think that one thing I love what you say is that a lot of people don't say that, by the way, especially enlisted side, by the way. It's the financial preparedness. I think the military in general at large has done a good job on the enlisted side over the last decade or so, as far as financial literacy, understanding the TSP, understanding Roth IRAs, and getting into the financial workings for enlisted folks. Because in the past, officers have had these trainings and officers have learned this thing, whether it be in school or through peers, where enlisted folks are buying $55,000 Camaros when they make $20,000 a year and making poor financial decisions. But over the last decade, I've just watched and seen from an education perspective, as well as just a mentorship from people like you that are talking about, hey, you're a staff sergeant at 10 years and you have zero money in your savings account. What are you doing? And I think that the financial planning to exit has to be there more than almost anything else. I mean, obviously your performance, marketing yourself in the military, which will also market yourself externally from the military, whether that be through certifications or schooling. But the financial part is something that is missed a lot of times. And I'm
Hey, you know
pushing
what,
for
man? To
people
your
like you.
point, I'm gonna tell you a story. I was in Iraq. I was in 3rd Infantry Division, and we were coming to the end of our 15-month tour, and a captain in our section was sitting at the computer, prior service captain, so a little bit older, and he's looking at ATHES online to buy a brand new car. You know how ATHES sells automobiles online, and he's looking at a Mustang GT 5.0, fully loaded, $42,000. And I said, Sammy, don't buy that damn car, man. Invest your money. He said, no, you know what? I've been here for 15 months and I'm gonna buy myself something. I've saved a lot of money. I've made a sacrifice. And I said, well, I tell you what, the day you buy that car, the day you sign that contract, you tell me, and I'm gonna buy $42,000 worth of Ford stock. Now, this was in 2007 or 8, right after our automobile industry took a tank and President Obama was having to buy them out and all that stuff. Well, Ford stock was $1.17 a share. So I got 35,000 shares for my $42,000. Sammy got a $42,000 car. I called Sammy 3 years later and I said, dude, you still own that car? He said, nah, man, I sold it. And I said, what'd you get for it? So it turned out that it cost him about $8,000 to own that car for that period of time. And I said, do you want to know how much money I made? And he chuckled and I said, I sold that Ford stock for $17.25 a share. I said, now, Uncle Sugar's going to get a big piece of that, but you do the math, brother. And I told you to do something smart with your money. And that came from, honestly, that type of thinking came from a young sergeant squad leader when I was a PFC. And you know, at that time, who was the financial advisor that we had running around, which was a terrible company to invest in. However, some investing into a bad deal is better than no investment, or investing in stereos like you just said, and freaking alcohol and everything else, cigarettes and everything else that we just smoke up or throw away. USPA, is that what it was? I don't remember, but they were bad, man. They were stealing money for soldiers. Long story short, he started me down that path of taking monopoly money and using monopoly money to act like I'm actually investing in these companies and then paying myself when it made money or taking that money away. So I'm not really making money or losing money, but I'm learning the way it works. And he did that for me. And then I kind of got into it. And man, I was, I think I fully invested by the time I was 24 years old. And this was long before, the Army said you're responsible for your own investing. So when that came about in probably 2010, if I remember correctly. So I'd already been in the Army for a minute, almost 20
1922.
years. Yeah. So I had 18 years invested.
Yeah.
So TSP
that's
didn't mean
amazing
anything to me because I was already invested.
So I'm gonna drop a name, Lacey Langford. I want to say her podcast is called Military Money. I think I don't. If I'm wrong, Lacey, please don't get angry with me. But regardless, Lacey Langford, easy name to remember. She actually deals with specifically military folks and investing. Her own. She teaches money, understanding how it works, and I'll tell you. She's been a joy to listen to. Her podcast is great, and it really speaks to what we make because obviously we understand the pay scales and all that stuff. And that doesn't change in E9s and E9s and E9 and E7, E6, O5s. So she's just really helpful in that regard. So if you're ever looking for money assistance, look at Lacey because she'll talk investments and other things. But
hey, you know what, Jeff, to your point and what we talked about offline,
Yeah.
so I just let a secret out that we actually had a conversation before we did this. And we were talking about the relationship between athletics and the Army or the military. Kind of the basic same dynamics. It's not the same amount of money, the scale of money, but you've got young people that join the military and they have money in their hand for the first time in their life. And they're really not sure what to do with it. So to go and buy a hoopty and put big rims on it, and $3,000 worth of stereo and everything else in between, because it's the first time they really had any money. Sure. Same thing with athletes. And then 3 years later, they're broke. Yep. So, we do teach money management at the lower level, but it's 1 or 2 classes a year for 30 minutes. Here's your mandatory training. Everybody go to sleep. Go through the slides, check off, sign the name.
Yeah, I mean, and more importantly, they don't want it, right? I mean, I think that's one of the more important things, right? Is that I think that when we, as adults, whether we're 18 or 35, when we want to learn something, you can put me in front of something, and if I don't want to learn it, I don't want it. I want true story. My parents bought me a pair of shoes and a pair of sneakers before school started. School was September to June in Buffalo, right? So I'd get a pair of shoes and a pair of sneakers for the school year. If they jacked up or whatever, you're going to put tape on them, right? That's just, we had a big family, not a lot of money. I tell you, when I joined the military, I had money, and it was the first time I had money. And because, like you said, the Army took care of me so well. I had a roof over my head, no rent, a meal card, didn't have to pay for food. I had money in which I bought on the 1st and 15th clockwork. I'd be at the Finish Line or Champs or wherever sporting store with sneakers. And I'd bought 2 pair of shoes, the 1st and 15th, for the first 3.5 years I was in the Army. If you could imagine how many shoes that is, it's a lot. I gave them away, by the way, to Metropolitan Ministries down here in Tampa. It's a homeless shelter. I gave sneakers that were never opened in its life because I had so many I didn't wear them. But I gave them away because I was like, this is dumb. I also ended up having a family and having children and understanding responsibilities were changed. But at the end of the day, I can relate to those young men and women who come in and have money for the first time, and the Army takes care of them, and the military in general takes care of them to such an extent. But the problem is, and this is where I think the problem lies more so than anything, is that if you don't have the right people, the right leaders around you, if I get out of the Army after 4 years, and in these 4 years I've had a meal card, the only thing I've had to really be responsible for is a phone bill, maybe car insurance, possibly. I might falter a little bit when I actually have to get outside of that and not have those safety nets, if you will. And it's, I mean, it's not, I don't want to blame the military. It's great that they do that. I mean, it's very helpful, but we also have to look inside ourselves to figure out how to best grow these folks, right? To help them with the day-to-day things, writing checks and balancing books, even though, we're so far away from checks and checkbooks nowadays with debit cards and Google Pay and all that stuff. I mean, I'm dating myself and I don't anyway.
Hey, I remember being stationed at Fort Stewart, man. And this, I was grown by this time. I think I was a sergeant major. I may have been a master sergeant. And I lived in Savannah and and I was stationed at Fort Stewart. So it's a little bit of a drive if anybody knows the area. And so I was listening to Steve Harvey on the radio. And Steve Harvey actually had a segment where he talked about finances, which is probably not the right guy to listen to about finance. However, he said something really, really, really that stuck to me and should stick with everybody. He said, listen, man, if you own a Land Rover before you own land, you ain't doing it right. You know what I'm saying?
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think that's where we get off. But I think the times are changing. I mean, there's some guys, you go to any military parking lot and look at the officers' cars, look at the enlisted cars, and see where they're going. But the good thing is, I think that we're getting people that are truly smarter than I ever was. Right? Like you talked about the staff sergeant you talked to just last night. I remember having these conversations. I still remember having these conversations. And what's interesting is, I find myself reflecting on my life, my career, when I say, at what point did I know that? I mean, this kid's a 10-year staff sergeant. I don't think I knew that till last week, and I've been retired for 5 years. You know what I mean? It's like you're starting. I mean, the people are starting to they're learning things differently, and they're in no matter what it is, and whether it be investments or just the basic operations. Like I mean, just stuff that they know. I'm pretty amazed at, and I was always comparing myself to those folks around me that I thought were really really good, and I was like, man, this guy's going to get promoted well before me, you know, and because he's doing the right things. But so I emulated them. I wanted to do the things they did, so I'd hang around them to learn those things. But anyway, that's good stuff. That's great
Well,
leadership. I
hey,
like
let me tell you what this staff sergeant asked me that I was talking to last night. This is how enlightened these young soldiers are. So, you know, when you talk to old guys, because they want to add value to what they did, regardless of what their profession was, they always say the generation behind me, they don't know any better. They got it too easy. Everybody says that. Let me tell you something. These folks that are coming up behind us, these leaders that are coming up behind us, they're 10 times better than we were. They just are, man. They're smarter. They're freaking more informed. They're freaking organized. They're ready. They're good. They're real, and they're mature. He asked me last night. He said, "So, where do you think that you had the biggest um, deficit in your leadership?" And I told him that it took me a while to learn how important being transparent as a leader was. I felt like because he's a recruiter, I said, I felt like I needed to be like your recruiter poster in everything that I did. And I would never let anybody see who I was. And it made me less effective as a leader than I should be.
Mm.
And he asked that question, which is a very insightful question. And the other question he asked me is he said, he looked right in the camera because we're talking on StreamYard. He said, "Are you happy?" Isn't that a powerful? I mean, I know that's a simple question, but for a 27-year-old to ask a 56-year-old, "Are you happy?" Wow. What a powerful question.
I mean, and because it could go so many places from that, right? I mean, it makes you be introspective and think about what are you really happy? I mean, I look happy, I
Yeah.
got this, I got that, but that's a materialistic thing. But am I happy? You know, it is a very powerful, and the conversations can go so much further. You know, I like the fact that he asked about the deficit in your leadership when you were there. I actually, you know, John Maxwell does the 360, you know, leader, all that stuff. You
Mhm.
read the book, it's great. I mean, it's really interesting. And I know the military in general, I think it's been a little bit where they've done the 360 when you're actually doing that stuff through your peer group and all that good stuff. And you know, oh, there it is. Look at that. Look at that. Love it.
Go
But
ahead.
I mean, the bottom line is I think a lot of times you said it earlier, ego is a bitch, right? We don't
Yeah,
want to
man.
know what like I don't want to be an introspective leader. I want to it's working. This is what I was taught to do and this is what I'm going to do because my mentors have done it this way. I've taken a little bit from this person and I'm just going to be this guy. And we seldom ask the specialist, "Hey, what do you think of my leadership?" Because we don't want to know. And I don't think we want to know because we don't want to hear the truth sometimes. Well, and especially we don't want to hear it in the manner in which they're going to tell us because if they say you're a dipshit, you're going to crush them, right? So they're not going to be honest with you. And I think that that's a fear of us. But I'll tell you from my perspective. When I was in the military, I thought I was a great leader. I really did. Like I mean, I thought there was things that I needed to learn because I'd see my peers and my senior people that I'm looking for guidance. Right after I left the military, I became very introspective. I'm telling you, I could tell you the things that like right now over the last 5 years, what have I learned? How have I grown in such a way that I wish I would have done for my 10 years, my previous 10 years to retirement, because I think that I would have been so much more effective, but I didn't. I had that mentality of, well, they promoted me, so they must think I'm great. You know what I mean? Like it's that mentality that kind of steered me in the wrong way. Like, why do you cuss all the time? Well, if they didn't want to promote me, they would have told me to stop cussing. You know what I mean? All that good stuff. Or they want me to stop cussing, they wouldn't have promoted me. So stuff like this, right? But anyhow, no, that's interesting. So let me ask you this: so you decide to retire, Sloan. You decide it's time. I've done my 30
Yeah.
years. I want to change. I want to shift gears. I want to move down to third. I want to slide to the stoplight and I want to do this thing the right way. What are some of the thoughts? Your preparation before? At what point were you? When you knew you were going to go at 30? How much time before? And you said you were kind of like working up until the end, so you didn't have much time before you went out. What kind of let's walk through the transition from what your thoughts were.
So you know, if I am perfectly honest, I should have retired earlier than I did. And I really believe that the last couple years that I was in, I became a shell of myself, that I was no longer as effective as I may have been 5, 6 years earlier. Because man, I think we all have a shelf life, right? I mean, the milk is going to go sour in the refrigerator sooner or later, man. I remember, have you ever been stationed at in Hawaii?
No, I just went to Tripler for about 3 months. I had cancer way back when. We don't have to
Oh,
get
I'm
into
sorry
that
to hear that,
conversation.
man.
But Hawaii was great. No,
You
I was
stay at
ready
the
to go.
Fisher House while you were there?
I stayed at the Fish House.
That's an awesome Fisher House, isn't it?
I still donated. Listen, I've been out of the Fisher House. I've donated to the Fisher House every year. One wonderful place. As a matter of fact, I might get someone from the Fisher House on here just because I love what they do. I love what they stand
Yeah,
for.
I just got goosebumps when you said that, man. The Fisher House, they're great people, man.
Amazing.
What year? Now we're going to talk about you. So, what year were you at the Fisher House?
So 2002, I was diagnosed with cancer in January of 2002. I spent February to May undergoing radiation. I stayed at the Helicoa for about 3 days before I realized that I can't afford it because I'm a specialist. So anyway, they put me up in the Fisher House. I stayed there. My mother and my father came and stayed with me for the months that I was there. My father flew back and forth, but yeah. So 2002, the Fisher House was absolutely an amazing,
great place, right?
Yeah.
Absolute great place. Hey, so what'd you ask me?
I don't even know. Like I was just thinking that we'd shift. We were talking about your transition. You said you would have said, hey,
yeah. So
you know what's funny? Hey, Sloan, listen, we're like we are two old guys that are just talking because this is the normal conversation. What were we even talking about?
So yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, it is a young man's game. So I was at Hickam Army Air Base. Excuse me, Air Force Base. And at Hickam, they have a 24-hour fitness facility. And let me tell you, man, some of the most fit people I have ever seen in my life go to Hickam Air Force Base to lift weights. And it doesn't matter if it's 3 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock at night. When you walk in there, ain't nothing but muscles. And I'm not talking about, because, things have transitioned. When I used to be into fitness and I was younger, everybody wanted to be big and strong and couldn't put your arms down by your side. Now it's all about CrossFit, right? Yep. So everybody's super, super fit from a holistic standpoint. Yep. So, you got girls back there doing pull-ups. Girls don't do pull-ups. Girls back there doing pull-ups, female soldiers doing pull-ups or airmen doing pull-ups. And I'm laying on a flat bench with dumbbells. And if anybody's ever lifted weights, there is a way to put those weights up and down. Not drop them to your side, but you put them on your knees and you raise up and then you put them to the ground. Whether you got 20-pound weights or 80-pound weights, there's a way to do it. So I'm knocking out some sets, right? And I raise up and I put the weights on my knees. And now I'm sitting up and I can see the mirror directly in front of me. And I look at this guy in the mirror and I say, who the hell is that old guy amongst all these young people? And I'm looking right at my damn self. I was looking at this old guy and I realized, you know what, man, it's time. I need to get the hell out of the way for these folks because it's their time. It's not my time anymore. It's time for me to go to the house. So I was very comfortable with that transition because I really believed that for other people to be successful in the military, especially in the military, but any walk of life, somebody's got to get out the damn way. Yeah. Somebody's got to get out of their seat and leave it empty so somebody else can sit in it. So it was time for me to do that. And I should have done it a little bit earlier, to be honest with you. And the reason why I say I should have done it a little bit earlier is because I really enjoyed being retired. I really enjoyed meeting people like yourself because that's been this last year is doing all of these podcasts and live streams and chatting on Facebook and just engaging with people that I'd never met in my life. And doing these interviews with people and thinking, man, where have you been all my life? The quality of my life would have been better if I'd have met all these people. And so when I engage with sergeants major that are currently on active duty, I always ask you on social media, what you doing on social media, man? Because I didn't do any of it. And that was a mistake. Yeah. They need to use social media. And because there's so many great people out there all over the world that you can reach from doing this. And then and you got me talking, man. And now from the standpoint of what you do for a living, helping people with transition and talking about the transition, not going through an A to Z list, but actually talking about what your experience was. That's incredibly powerful for people to listen to. 8 to 80, blind, crippled, or crazy, whoever is listening to this, they get to learn and grow through our interaction because you went through it and I went through it. Anybody watching this that went through it, they're connected to it and they share those stories. And although your situation may be completely different from mine, there's little nuances that are the same. And the scuffed up knees that I got, I'm gonna save you from having those because I'm gonna provide you that information.
And that's kind of the goal, right? I mean, I think that was the idea all along. Is look, man, there's pitfalls. There's things that people. I mean, you can look on LinkedIn, right? You can go on LinkedIn and see, but people are like, "Oh, I read this post. I never even thought about that before, and then I did it, and now I'm successful. Or now I've got a lead to whatever." And to me, it's just you can't have enough of these conversations. It doesn't matter who's having them. I mean, I don't find myself as the transition expert. I would never claim to be that guy. I'm not. I could tell you some things in which I've learned through my experiences, what I've heard through others' experiences. But at the end of the day, really, what it comes down to is, man, we're all in this together. And if I can bring someone's voice up and we can have this conversation, we can inform and educate somebody else, and so they can miss some of those pitfalls. And I want to. You said social media, so that's actually a good transition a little bit, right? We're transitioning here in this regard. You failed to do social media because I think there's a lot of reasons. I did the same, by the way. When I was on OPSEC was a big deal, so you didn't want to be on Facebook because we didn't want to post our locations. We were kind of nervous about what we put on Facebook and how can it be used against you in a court of law and all this other stuff, right? Because we were concerned about that stuff. LinkedIn wasn't at the time such a big a deal while I was in the military because I wasn't searching for employment. I wasn't a business owner. There wasn't anything in LinkedIn that would have benefited me in my mind, by the way. So if you're listening, LinkedIn benefits you. Whether you're at 5 years in the Army, 15, 20, it's a beneficial platform to build your network. But all that being said, you've since started using Facebook. You started creating different things, and we're going to talk. I'm going to put you up there before I put your. I'm going to put your Facebook group up, and I want to talk about that because it's significant, right? It's not just what you're doing. I mean, it's who you are. I mean, it's all you, right? Everything on the back. It's wonderful. But what I want to do is I want to share this real quick. Bill Johansson really enjoyed this episode with Jeffrey and Tim on military to civilian transition with especially valuable insight on financial preparation. Thanks to the both of you. Hey, Bill, thanks for coming and joining. I appreciate it. I wanted to throw that up there. All right. So we're going to talk about the Servant Leader Alliance, right? We're going to talk about how it began. What is the idea of it all? And we're going to tell people, hey, real quick, I'm going to throw it up there for folks to see. It's on the screen. So what I'm going to do for y'all watching, if you look at that, you're going to see it. You might not see it in your comments block because StreamYard blocks. I can't put, if I make a comment in here, it doesn't go to everywhere. Not a big deal. So write it down. Go to Facebook. If you're on Facebook, go to Facebook and check out this HTTPS, the www. All that good stuff, /Servant Leader Alliance. That's the Facebook page in which Tim Sloan here, he runs it. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. I actually, when I'm Alan Chessman, and that, by the way, unintended consequences, right? I don't seek out many guests for my show. Like I have a lineup. I've been doing this for 4.5, 5 years now. And I don't typically, like, I'll send out an email to say, hey, David Goggins, if you're listening, I'd love to have you on just because you're awesome. Everybody loves your book and you're a great guy. And we want to hear your transition story, right? But for the most part, I do a live stream and it's streamed on a LinkedIn or it's streamed on a Facebook or somewhere, and someone will watch it that I don't know who they are. They'll make a comment. I'll connect with them afterwards, and then we have a conversation. And then they say, "Hey, you should meet my buddy Timothy Sloan, because he's this guy." And then I call Timothy Sloan, and through those conversations, I get new guests, and we get to share stories. And I'll tell you, that's an amazing thing of the unintended consequence. But because of that, I've been in his group now, looking at the Facebook group, and I've scrolled through the postings, and man.
Some good stuff, right?
It's great. I mean, I can't get enough of it. I mean, because it's not just crap, right? I say that because so many things nowadays that you scroll through on any social media site, sometimes it's just the message ain't for me. But with yours, man, everything I could, if I spent all my day on Facebook, I promise you it would be on your page, and I'd be responding to a lot of the things that are on there because it's just that valuable. There's such good insight. So talk to me. So how did Servant Leader Alliance come about? Was that something that you envisioned 20 years ago, or
no, man? So, last year, I don't even remember, not last summer, but the summer before last, I got an invitation to join a Facebook group for Command Sergeants Major and Sergeants Major, a group that Alan is a administrator for. And it just came to me on my freaking messenger. I thought, man, I don't even know what this is. So I clicked on it. And when I read the rules and read the background, the purpose of that group is to take E9 Sergeants Major in all services and link them with the brand new guys coming out of the academy, so that you've got from the past and the present and the future leaders all kind of communicating and growing together. And I thought, man, what a great environment. So I'll go in there, and there's about 6,000 members in this page, and there are some super people in there. There are some incredible people, and there's some damn messy ass people too. Any forum you go to, you're gonna get some mess from time to time. And I didn't like that mess. I didn't like the name calling. I didn't like the arguing. I'm kind of like you. You're like a brother from another mother, man. You like to have this positive energy. You want to be positive, and you get drugged down by this negative behavior of these people that are just miserable. God bless them. I hope they figure out that they shouldn't be so miserable. But anyway, that's when I met Mark Halliburton, Tyrone Taylor, and Jamie Hasselcheck, and we all kind of shared the same vision. And we say, you know what? We're going to start changing the culture of this page, and we're going to do it by doing what we called the Leader Lunch Talk. So we do like you do, man. We started doing these live streams, bring people in at noon. The four of us would be on the panel, and we'd interview people freaking about retirement. Like Mike Quick came on, and Sergeant Major of the Army retired Tilly came on, who was incredible, by the way. He had everybody crying, not laughing, emotionally. We all had tears in our eyes. We're on the freaking live stream. Everybody's doing like this. Just a really incredible interview. But that had a maximum effective range. You know what I'm saying? It was a closed group, 5,500 to 6,000 members, only Sergeants Major. So we started thinking, man, we can do better than this. How can we do it? So we got together, we did a little conference call, we talked about it, we argued about it, and then I just put pen to paper, man. I started writing. I came up with these pillars of excellence. I came up with this strategic plan, and got onto Facebook and created this Servant Leader Alliance, and then created some groups underneath the Servant Leader Alliance. So you got Servant Leader Alliance, and you've got 7 different groups under there. And the only group that we've really worked on a lot is the Ask a Sergeant Major group. The other groups are just kind of floundering right now because we're just trying to establish a base. But yeah, that Servant Leader Alliance is open to anybody. It's not private. You don't have to request to be there. You don't have to answer questions like, what was your mother's maiden name? You just come in and you feast on the meal that we're serving, and you can engage with people or you can eat quietly. I don't care, as long as you're eating, Now, what I do like to tell people is ring the doorbell with your elbow. Have you ever heard that before?
No, please enlighten me.
Yeah, so imagine that you going over to your mother-in-law's house, and it's Thanksgiving dinner, right? And you ring the doorbell, and she comes to the door, and she looks at you, and she says, Jeffrey, next time you come to my house, you need to use your damn elbow. Now, why would you use your elbow?
I don't know, but my mother-in-law lives in this room right here, so I'm not going to her house. That's an easy way. It's an easy way not to answer the question.
The reason why you use your elbow is because your hands are full. So if you're coming to dinner, bring something.
You better bring something. I got it.
Bring something with you. So if you're coming to our page, man, be open and honest and transparent, and add to it. Make it better. Engage with people. If you see something you like, make a comment about it. If you see something that you don't like or you don't agree with, man, I am never angry when somebody says I got the ugly baby. I don't care. Let's talk about it. Why do you think it's ugly? Does it have one eye bigger than the other? I don't care. Let's get after it. Because difficult problems take difficult conversations to come up with a viable conflict resolution and mutual growth. So for us to do that together, we got to get after it a little bit. So I don't mind the back and forth. I just don't like the name calling, and that's what sometimes I would find. The sergeants major acting like they're 8 years old.
Yeah. Well, I think right about now, and almost, I mean, hell, man, I'm in a bunch of different sports groups, and I have conversations, and that's where it comes down to when you present facts. People don't like facts if it doesn't match their agenda, and this is sports related. And when they don't like the facts that match their agenda, then it becomes they have to resort to something, and name calling typically goes in. But depending on what groups you're in, it's controlled pretty well. But I don't like that stuff. Hey, real quick, what I want to do real quick, I'm going to pull this up and I'm going to read this because I really like it. So if you go onto the Facebook group, if you go there and you take a look at the Servant Leader Alliance, there is a pillar right at the very front page, and I want to read it because I really like it. I saw it, and it just speaks to me, and I kind of want to tell you what the foundation is, and then Sloan, you can break it down even further, just to kind of break it down to tell people what specifically you're doing in regards to. But it talks about the afterlife, which is creating wealth and financial stability. It talks about professional growth, which is maximizing the human dimension through education, training, health, and fitness. Talks about the TIMTalks, which, by the way, TIMTalks is an amazing thing because it's such a good play on words. When I first saw it, man, I was like, maybe he wants to be called Tim, and he's talking, so it's TIMTalks. But listen, it's timeless, inspirational, and meaningful leadership lessons and discussions. I love it. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna actually, on the other side on my Facebook group, I'm gonna pull some of those things and let people kind of just hear them because they're very, very valuable. Community outreach, selfless service, and making the world a better place. And the other pillar is the power of network, connecting leaders with leaders. And again, you talk specifically. This is not just a transition thing. This is an an industry-wide type foundation. So we're talking connecting leaders with leaders, from industry to the military to the athletic world to anything. It can cover anything. And this is what I think is. I mean, it's a great place. I think military folks inside of a place are good because you have like-minded people. But what I think I've learned in the last 5 years is I love being around the veteran community. I love being around military leaders. But man, there's so much to learn if I open the door a little bit and let other leaders in that have different insights and perspectives.
Amen. Yeah.
So let's talk about the pillars. Let's talk. I really want to get. I mean, the page itself. Listen. Get involved with the page, all y'all. I mean, get in there and make those interactions, connect, and if you feel something, make a comment about it. Let's talk about it further so we can engage and make more discussion. But tell me about the idea of it all. I mean, we've already done that as far as getting up to here, but now we create the pillars, and where do we go from there? What are we really?
Yeah, so we do. Anytime you start any type of venture, man, it's you got a whole bunch of stuff in the parking lot, right? You're brainstorming, you got things everywhere, and there's no organization to your thought, man. It's just like somebody get the vacuum cleaner and clean all this crap up. And so we took those pillars to just kind of channel our efforts, and so that we don't try to overdo what our goals are, but we also hit all the critical points that we want to be involved in. Not only that, each member of our group, Mark and Jamie and Tyrone and now Renee, has a different pillar they're responsible for. So now you can divide up the work as well and really move in a positive direction. So that's kind of the genesis of that, is to just kind of create some organization to what we're doing. But to your point, man, about leaders from all over the place. Again, I'm like you, man. I got a million stories. So I happened to be in Dallas. I was still on active duty. I was sent to work with industry. I went to a leadership symposium in Dallas. It was a healthcare leadership symposium run by a company that I'm not going to mention their name. I mean, great people. I just don't think I should mention their name. And it's a week long, and they are developing their leaders. And here I am, I didn't wear my alligator suit every day, but I was still wearing an alligator suit. And the CEO and the president knew that I was there. They knew that I had been invited, knew that I was attending all their briefings. And it's just like any other symposium that we go to in the military. You've got a main session in the morning, and then in the afternoon, you kind of bounce around to different sessions, things that float your boat or blow your skirt up. So I'm making my way around and listening to some really dynamic speakers, man, just incredible speakers. And then Friday night was a mixer. And me and the CEO of the company happened to have a conversation at this mixer. And we're sitting there just talking, and I'm not really paying attention. We're just talking. And I look up, and there's 20 people listening to our damn conversation. It was incredible. And so he's picking my brain, and he said, well, I know you're an executive leader in Army healthcare. So what did you learn this week that you're going to take back to your organization to improve your organization? Which is a great question, right? And I said, well, sir, you've got some really great people, and I love their energy. I love their enthusiasm. They really inspire people to be more tomorrow than they are today. And anytime that you can inspire people, because for me as a leader, my number one job is to enable you and then get the hell out of your damn way and let you do your job. And so part of that is inspiring you. And so that's probably one of the things that I'll take back. I said, but my biggest takeaway, and I looked him dead in the eye and said, I'm better than anybody you got. And everybody chuckled. Now I got 20 people laughing, and he's laughing. And about 2 weeks later, I get a phone call, and I pick up my phone and I and I answer it, normal Army freaking answering the phone, right? And the voice on the line said, are you really better than anybody I have? And we both kind of laughed. And then that kind of led to some opportunities for me in dealing with them and working with them and doing some contract working with them as a civilian. And I realized how incredibly talented our civilian counterparts are, because they're not constrained by Army regulation. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a thing. It is. And we do ourselves a disservice by not linking ourselves with leadership development within civilian industry. Like you said, Maxwell, go to Maxwell training. You will be a better leader. Go to Arbinger training. You will be a better leader. And neither one of those things have anything to do with the Army, but they will make you a better leader. And those are the type of training opportunities that civilians get. So to take the Servant Leader Alliance and open it up to civilians and military. And if you go onto the Servant Leader Alliance page, unless you go into any one of the little specific groups, you can't even tell it's a military page or military background. And I do that on purpose, because for me, leadership is leadership is leadership. It doesn't matter whether you wear a Brooks Brothers suit or an alligator suit. It is freaking leadership. So that's what we're trying to build with that.
It's outstanding. I love it. And there's so many organizations. So when I got out, I became a member of the National Speakers Association, and I wouldn't do anything but speak highly of the organization as all the way around. I mean, it's wonderful. The people within it, the military members, and they have a military portion or chapter of it, which it's pretty good. You get to connect with a lot of folks at the conferences. But I'll tell you, obviously the National Speakers Association doesn't teach you how to be a speaker. You either speak or you don't, but it teaches the business of speaking, right? And I think that's where it's a really, really great, it's a really great organization. I say that to say this: within that organization where there are military folks, and I've got to connect with them across the states, right? It's been nice, because it kind of makes you feel good. You're a military member, a veteran. You're part of this National Speakers Association. You're making money speaking. How did you do it? And it makes it a very easy conversation. What's even better is you have leadership development is a lot of what people speak about: industry leadership, healthcare leadership, right? And to sit there and to listen to some of these industry leaders that have been speaking to certain industries for 25, 35, 50 years. I mean, Hall of Fame speakers, and telling you their leadership tactics and skills, and you're listening to them, and you look at what we do in the military, and it's good, but because it's great. I mean, I love what we do. And then you take their input and you say, man, you could actually weave this into some of the stuff that I did then, and I would have been that much more impactful. And oh, by the way, I could tell them some of the things that we did, and they might be we might be stuck from a structural perspective and confined a little bit based on UCMJ or whatever the case would be. But leadership is leadership is leadership. If you're a good leader, you're inspiring people to do the best thing, and you're leading large groups of people that aren't selected for the most part, right? You just get people. It doesn't matter. I mean, you call HRC and try to get this soldier, but at the end of the day, you're getting a guy from South Carolina, a guy from New York, a guy from this, a
Yeah.
girl from there. It doesn't matter. And then you just have to be better, right? A good leader. And so there's just so much you can put into it if you open your ears and you're not so much a us versus them type thing. And that's a huge thing in the transition at the transition time, is that it's us versus them when it's not. It's us all together, right? Because once you're out of the uniform, you're them. You're part of them.
Hey man, I'll tell on myself a little bit. So this,
Yes.
we had a leadership, just senior leaders at the region level for the Army. So all colonels and command sergeants major and generals, right? And I looked at the agenda and they had Simon Sinek as a guest speaker. And my immediate response was, why the hell is he talking to us? I said, you know what? You can go to the gym and hit the heavy bag. You can go to the gym and you can jump the rope. You can even get in the freaking ring and spar, but you ain't boxing until you get punched in the face. And Simon Sinek ain't ever been punched in the face. So that was my attitude, right, in the beginning. And then once I listened to him, man, what a great speaker. And not just a great speaker, because he is really good speaker. He's good at that stuff. Great thinker. He just stimulates you to say, wow, there's a different way of looking at this. And really, a lot of his training and his comes from the military. He works with the Rangers. He works with the Marines. He's gone to Special Forces. He's looked at the Navy SEALs, and he talks about these relationships and building trust. He's really good, man. And he's a civilian. And he never had a damn uniform on. He's a marketing expert. He's run companies, but he has absolutely nothing to do with military service. And we benefit from him, and we benefit from relationship with guys exactly like him. So that's what we're trying to do, man, trying to link people like that. And of course, he's a big name guy, got 1 million books and all that other jazz, but little guys too, man, that are just freaking leaders at a regional level for AT&T that are just in the trenches every day doing their thing. I love to engage with those guys and learn from them, and then let me teach them what I've learned over the 30 plus years that I've been leading soldiers. So it's a great relationship, and that's what we're trying to build with it, man.
No doubt. Well, just so you know, Simon Sinek 7 years ago was a little guy too, with Eaters Eat Last, and it starts with why. And he's got the new book that he just came out with. I can't remember the title off my head, but I think it's winning the finite, something like that. But nonetheless,
Yeah,
I got to see Simon Sinek speak as well down here in Tampa, and I'll not to break off and just talk Simon Sinek, but the thing that was really effective to me listening to him is, you said it. He doesn't tell you your answers. He speaks and lets you formulate your opinions based on the things in which he's saying, which is amazing, because he's planting seeds, obviously, but he's giving you the ability to be the thought leader, right? And he is a guy that has a lot of experience through conversation, through different interviews and conversations he's had with military members. And he's come up with these basic truths, right? And then you get to think about the things he said when you read Leaders Eat Last. It's what we do, right?
that's what we do, right?
As a sergeant major, your soldiers are eating first, and then you're going to eat last, and that's basically granted from that. But he takes that and then puts it through. It's not a military book, but it has the concepts of our leadership, our doctrine. And then you listen to Starts With Why. Look, we talk about this even in your group itself. We could talk about, I want to make money, I want to do this. But if you don't know why you're doing something, if you don't have a passion for what you're doing and why you're doing it, it'll go away, because you gotta always go back to, why am I serving? If you were to have the idea that at 29 years old, that you're in the military because of the same reason at 22, you probably wouldn't still be in. You just wanted to get away from home. But at some point in time, as you developed the likeness and the passion, and you embraced the leadership, you embraced the camaraderie, now you had a why. I'm doing this because there's something much bigger than me. And that why stayed with you for another 20 years as you got to 30. And I think that's significant. And that also brings you to, why are you still doing it? Why are you still serving in this leadership and a servant leader alliance? Because it's it's who you are, but it's because you want the bigger outcome, right? There's something bigger than
hey. And I tell people, because people assume that when you get involved in stuff like this, that you're still trying to hold on to your rank. and your position and your prestige, I'm happily retired. I am 100% okay with not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go run around freaking the installation or freaking working 18 hours a day.
No phone calls
And
at 3. You got to go pick up a soldier. That doesn't bother you anymore.
yeah, man. Yeah. Listen to the officers tell me how damn smart they are. Yeah, yeah, man. Don't get me wrong, man. I don't miss that shit at all. But what I do miss,
Mhm.
and I miss it every day, and the Servant Leader Alliance gives it to me, is being able to help people, man. So when I always talk about the dash, and people have heard this before, and it is a little cliche, but for me, it's absolutely true. So when you pass away, wherever your gravesite is, there's going to be the day the year you were born, a dash, and the year you leave this earth. And that dash doesn't necessarily represent the quality of your life or quantity of your life, but the effect of your life. So, did you make this world a better place from 1965 to 2000 and X when I depart this earth? Did I make it a better place? And when I left the military and I started thinking about what now, right? So I'm good, but how do I add value to my life? And the best way to add value to your life is by adding value to other people's lives. So that's kind of way I got into this, man, is so that I could help people along their journey. I don't want to ever one of the best quotes and I can't even attribute to anybody. I don't know where I read it from, but the worst thing that you can do for the people that you care about is do for them what they can do for themselves. And I don't want to do things for people. I don't want to provide them the answers. But I want to poke the pig a little bit. You know what I mean? I want to lead them down these discussions where they can find the answers and the resolutions themselves, and provide them a safe environment where they can communicate whatever they're feeling, so that you don't have people beating them on the head that say, "Got it, man. And I know it's difficult. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about this?" And most of the time, and you can attest to this as well, people know what the right answer is, man. They absolutely know what the right answer. I was at Triple Army Medical Center. I was in the basement. I think it was like 1700 for your civilian watchers. That's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And later in the afternoon, and most people had gone, and a young soldier stopped me. So I'm old, gray-haired sergeant major. And he stopped me. He said, "Sergeant Major, you got a few minutes?" And I said, "Man, I always got a few minutes for you." He said, "I just want to talk." And so he starts laying out a myriad of very complicated problems, from financial problems to marital problems to professional problems. And I know what you're thinking right now, because you were a non-commissioned officer. And what I was thinking at that time, shut the hell up, because I can fix all of this stuff. I can make every single bit of this go away. And he kept talking and kept talking, and he would not even stop long enough for me to freaking interject. And I'm believe me, man, I'm on the edge of my boots trying to get in there just to say, "Hey, brother, I got you, man. I can fix all of this stuff." And before I knew it, he stuck out his hand and shook my hand. He looked me in the eye and he said, "Thank you so much. You've been a big help." And he walked away. Now, I wanted to grab him by the nape of the neck and say, "Get your ass back here. I could have fixed all that stuff." But he didn't need me to fix it. What he needed me to do was listen to him. So
That's awesome.
my leadership action at that time was no action. It was just to listen. And a lot of times that's all people need to do. All they need is somebody to listen to them. So with the Servant Leader Alliance, yeah, I can help you, man. I really can help people. Absolutely. I've been experienced. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've got 50 sergeants major, E9s, most senior freaking leaders in the Army that are part of our group that answers questions on a regular basis. We can provide you answers, but we don't have to. And we're not going to try to. We're just going to work with you, kind of talk you through different challenges and situations and see if we can't come up with the right answer. Because, the path that I took to solve an issue that may be similar to yours, the variables in your situation may be completely different from the variables in my situation. So for me to take out a canned solution to your problem, it's probably not going to work.
100% correct. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm one of those guys that never tell you I know how you feel when you're going through something. Because I know how I feel, and I don't know how much you care about the thing that you're going through, right? I mean, so I can't tell you how I feel, but I would tell you, if you want me to listen, I'll listen. If you need advice, I'll give it to you. You tell me what you want from me at this moment. And that's where it goes. Now, don't get me wrong. You could probably tell, anyway, that I'm never at a loss for words. I can talk. I would probably enter a contest and see how close I'd come to winning, because I could do this for all night. But some people just can't stand the sound of my voice. I love it now because I'm deaf. I have hearing aids and I'm not wearing them, so it doesn't hurt me any. I sound like Barry White. Understanding that for you guys, I don't. Anyhow, no, I really like the listening idea. I really love the fact that I think that we have to do that a lot more. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna drop Michael Quinn's name here. I try not to do that ever. He's doing his great stuff, and I don't like to try to take stuff from him or use him as a name that I ride. But I'll tell you, Michael Quinn made a post the other day talking about specifically about informational interviews. And that's something in which, I'll probably get into on a different show and we'll have conversations about it. But it's the conversation is informational interviews are supposed to be done in a manner in which you may ask a question, but for the most part, you're there to listen.
Yep.
And a lot of people, when it comes to those type of things, they feel like it's their time to audition. So instead, it's like they call a guy or a girl to get the climate of a company or how did you get this job after doing this? But instead of listening to them tell them, they're like, well, there's a job at your business that I think that I fit because this is what I did, this is who I am, and they go on and on and on. And by the time that the 15 minutes is over, because informational interviews aren't going to be 3 hours long, well, they've talked so much that the other person hasn't really got to give them any information. So, I definitely want to get into more of that conversation because Michael Quinn was spot on with his post. And then just the responses that were given, it's interesting. I think that listening is something that we all can work on, especially me. Look, I'm not going to tell you that that it's not me too. I believe me, I like to talk all day, but listening is something that definitely needs to be done, especially during those informational interviews.
Hey, check it out, man. I remember I had a older person getting ready to retire. I was still on active duty, and she came to me and she asked me to take a look at her resume. And as if I'm an expert on resumes, right? But when you're the command sergeant major, you're the expert on every damn thing, even when you're not. So she brings me her resume, and man, that resume was tight. She had alphabet soup. She had so many damn freaking certifications and education and everything else in between. And I'm looking at it and I'm going through this resume, and she said, "Do you think I'm going to have any problem finding a job?" And I said, "Your resume is really nice. It's really good. But you're going to have problems." And her eyes got big and she said, "Why do you think?" And I said, "Because you're an asshole." You can't, that's kind of the overriding, you know what I mean? It's, if you're an asshole, it doesn't matter what you've done to prepare yourself to transition from the military or interview for a job. The best thing you can be is don't be an asshole. Be a good person. Be a nice person. Be somebody that people can see being around 10 to 12 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've interviewed people. You've probably interviewed people before.
Yep.
I'm thinking during the entire interview, because resumes are so tight, they're all closely related. There's really not much. Everybody's kind of the same, right? And I'm thinking to myself, do I want to see this person every day? Do I want to talk to this person every day? Do I want to share space rent free in my mind with this person, or is there somebody else for the job? And so that my advice to anybody that's transitioning, listen to the folks around you. If they're telling you that you've got some personality problems and you're not necessarily easy to be around, you need to fix that, because that's going to limit your opportunities. People like to be around people that have energy, that inspire them, that are part of a team, that row in the same direction that everybody else is rowing. Mm-hmm. And if you can't be that person, if you're the one with the oars either sitting in the water doing nothing or rowing backwards, it's going to be difficult for you.
No doubt. Perfect. I love it, because I'll tell you that you hear a lot of times people talk about cultural fit. They'll talk about their criteria that they meet. They'll talk about the requirements that they meet. They'll go through a job description. They'll look at what do you need to have. They'll look at their resume to make sure it matches, lines up, and all that's important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say it's not important, but listen, The interview is huge. The network's huge, but understanding that the interview is the cultural fit means, do you fit the company culture? Are you a genuinely good human being? as long if you bring some great stuff to the organization, maybe they're happy because a lot of times they like the bottom line. But if that guy or girl is going to hire you and they have to see you every day, you probably want to take Sloan's advice here and be a good human being. It's just a good thing to do, right? So yeah, I mean, definitely, I love it, and I'm the guy. I like the straightforward response too. By the way,
Yeah.
I some people sugarcoat things and say, yeah, listen, tell me the truth. I need to know the truth because if your perception of me, because look, we all look in the mirror and see something different than what you see. So when I look in the mirror, Sloan, listen, bro, just like I told you, I hear Barry White, even because I'm deaf and I don't got my hearing aids in. So all I hear is what's inside of my head.
Yeah.
You don't hear my voice the same way. So what's reciprocated to me is different. And I need to know what you hear. I need to know that what it is that you're seeing and believing. So uh, in
Yeah.
order to do that, I have to be thoughtful and I have to ask, or I have to put myself in a position to understand you. But a lot of times, we'll just stay deaf and blind and do what we want to do because that's an ego thing, right? But we need to take a little heed to those people's warnings and or just tell me the truth. Let me know how I offend you because I probably do with some remarks I make or some things I do. How do I treat you? How do you treat me? How do I deserve to be treated versus how am I expected to be treated? All that stuff, man. I love it. That's perfect, man. Don't be an asshole. That's I should put that on the bottom, right? That should scroll, but I love it. It's a perfect thing. Hey, listen. So before we wrap up, what I want to do is I want to give you an opportunity, just to whatever you'd like to say. This is your time. You can say whatever you want. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I don't want to end it with not letting you say anything you want. You can plug anybody or anything, but
Yeah.
it's all the floor is yours.
Hey, so I'm gonna do a little bromance to begin with. So God bless you for the space that you've created, man, because it may not seem real important, and when you've got people out in the virtual world and they're listening, and you don't necessarily see the effect of what you do, it's kind of like sitting on a corner in a dark pair of pants and peeing in your pants, right? It gives you a warm feeling, but nobody sees it. So God bless you for what you do because you're making a difference, man. You're making a difference in people's lives. Even though you don't see it, you're absolutely making a difference in people's lives. You have no idea who's listening to us talk today. And they're prepared, they're preparing to transition from whether it be from the military or from freaking Wendy's to Chick-fil-A. They're preparing to transition, and change is freaking scary. And so for people like yourself that are helping people through change, that's important stuff, man. So thank you for what you do, and then thank you for giving me an opportunity to come on here and just kind of talk about what we're trying to do at the Servant Leader Alliance. Uh, I think the most important thing that I can say about the Servant Leader Alliance is I have no hidden agenda. I don't, man. I've been lucky enough to have been blessed with some good investments along the way. I have as much money as I will ever need in my life. I don't need to be monetized. I'm not trying to be monetized. Monetization and more money is not going to fill that dash on my freaking grave site. What's going to fill my dash is being able to help people, help them along their journey, provide them a safe environment where they can learn and grow without fear of retribution. Without fear. You're going to have difficult conflicts from time to time. I'm not going to kick you off the page. I'm not going to not going to ask you a bunch of silly questions to make sure that you fit my culture. No, we're going to develop this culture together. And if it's something you want to be part of, then come on in. If you don't share the same culture or same ideas or idealations, then you can go somewhere else. That's fine too, man. No hard feelings.
Man, I love it. Hey, so you're welcome, and I appreciate the words because it's great, and I do feel like I'm making a difference because people like you tell me, and because I wouldn't know it otherwise. So I love it, and I really appreciate your time to come on. Hey, I got to tell you, I did a video. My father passed away in April of 2010. I think it was latter part of 2010. I went up to New York to see his gravesite. I went to visit when I came back from Germany, and I did a video, and I'm trying to find it because we had that conversation, and I remember doing a video in 2010 that specifically talked about that dash between the years from his born to death date. I don't think I made it up. As a matter of fact, I think I heard someone might have said it, but I was looking at it, and at that point, it just hit me. And every time I hear someone say it, I don't sit there and say I said that. No, because there's value to it. Doesn't matter
Yeah,
how
yeah.
many times it's said. It needs to be a very symbolic thing to what it is that you're going to do and what does that dash mean. So I love when you say it. I'll always applaud when you say it because it means so much, because there is so much we're going to do in that dash. What are you doing to make that dash be impactful around the world? So all that you said is spot on. I will be a big supporter of you throughout. I love what you're doing. I When I got introduced to you and I heard what you're doing, like, listen, I've heard about all these things, like all the Ask a Sergeant Major. I heard about this stuff, right? I'm I mean, I still got friends of mine that are in the military, right? That are looking at the Ask a Sergeant Major page. I got friends that are in your Sergeant's Major group that really appreciate what the venue that's there for them to vent, to express their feelings, to get some feedback. It's a great thing that you're doing, and I support all that stuff. So all that being said, man, thank you so much for your time. For all of you watching, hey, Enrique, fill that dash while you're alive. I see it now. Look, I got a post up here. So Enrique Acosta Gonzalez, fill that dash while you are alive. You're right. Make it work. Hey, appreciate you guys coming to watch. Hey, listen, if you're watching, share it. People want to hear it. And listen, I'm not upset if more people hear it. Anyhow, all that being said, Sloan, great to have you. I look forward to building a further relationship with you. Anything I can do to support you, I'm here. For all you at home watching, hey, we'll check you out next time on the other side.
Awesome stuff, man.
That's the catchphrase right there, bro.